Welcome back, sleepy soul. Tonight, I am your storyteller, ready to drift you into a deep and peaceful sleep. Before we begin, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe for more scary stories. I'd love to hear where you're watching from and what time it is there, so please let me know in the comments. Also, if there's a particular story you'd like to hear next, feel free to suggest it. I remember the carpet first, blue-gray swirls meant to hide spills. It was August 2007, the morning after Disneyland, and I was 10, sunburned, wearing a Mickey lanyard, convinced airports were puzzles adults solved. Our gate was crowded. Dad went to the counter to ask about seats. My sister Nadia sat beside me. My little brother Omar slept against our carry-on. We were at the small airport near the park, the one where warm air slipped in every time the doors opened. The departure board glowed. I felt safe because the rules felt obvious. They arrived smiling, ordinary. The woman wore a knit sweater and chewed peppermint gum. The man had a sun visor and a camera. They stopped in front of us like we were the ones they'd come for. "There you are," the woman said, light and certain. "You're Dan's kids, right?" Dad's name is Daniel. Almost no one calls him Dan. A seatbelt inside me clicked. "He's at the counter," the man added. "We're cousins on your father's side. Promised we'd swing by. I'm Roy, this is Linda." Then came our names, easy as reading a tag. "Nadia and Omar," the woman said, and looked at me. "You must be the brave one." Our last name was on paper tags Dad had tied to our bags. I tucked mine under the strap. The woman leaned in. "How's your mom? Still doing those night shifts?" "Our mom doesn't work nights." Nadia didn't blink. "We're fine," she said. The man gave a gentle laugh, smoothing the mistake. "We told your dad we'd help you carry snacks to the car," he said. "Ours are downstairs with our kids." We brought cold water. Car hovered like a lure. I could taste cold water just from hearing it. But the carpet under my shoes felt like a rip tide. "We're not supposed to leave the gate," I said. "Just for a minute," the woman said. "We'll bring you right back. We don't want to pull your dad away while he's sorting the seats. We're family." She said family like a password. She reached for Omar's backpack. He woke when a strap tugged and tried to smile, always polite. The man took my suitcase and rolled it a few inches, testing. "We're parked right outside," he said. "It's quicker if we go now." Nadia scratched her wrist. That's what she does when she's thinking. "We should wait," she said, but it sounded like a question. "We won't go far," the woman said. "Our kids are waiting. Your dad will be so grateful we helped." I remembered the gum smell and the visor shadow. "We can call our dad," I said. "Oh, sweetie," the woman said. "Phones don't always work by the parking lot. Come on, it's just downstairs. We'll be back before boarding." They didn't wait for a yes. They started moving. The man guided my suitcase. The woman took Omar's hand. We became aligned to the escalator under the exit sign. I looked for Dad. He was at the counter. Maybe I didn't yell because airports reward quiet and I wanted to be helpful. Maybe because their calm looked like safety. We stepped onto the moving teeth and rode down. Halfway, a sign punched through my fog. "Secure area. No re-entry without boarding pass." If we went outside, Dad couldn't just look up and find us. "I need to wait for my dad," I said louder. "We won't be 5 minutes," the man said. At the bottom, the air changed, coffee to exhaust. The sliding doors breathed warm air. The couple moved faster. The woman lifted Omar onto her hip. He reached for me over her shoulder. "Hold on," Nadia said. She stopped hard. A man with a neck pillow bumped her. She grabbed my arm. "We can't go outside. We're waiting for Dad." "We'll wave him down," the woman said. "He'll be grateful. Come on, honey. Our kids are in the car." We were 2 steps from the doors when I yanked my arm free. "I don't know you," I said. It came out thin. I took a breath and shouted, "I don't know you." People looked. Not enough. The man grabbed my wrist. "She's tired," he said to the air, tugging me toward the sun. "Let go," Nadia said. Her voice cracked. Something inside me clicked. "I don't know you," I screamed again. I didn't have the exact phrase. This is not my parent, but I had the volume. I kicked. My sneaker flew off and slapped the sliding door. Omar started to cry, a hiccuping little kid cry. "Nadia," he called, scared. A janitor pushed his cart between me and the man. "Let the kid go," he said, steady and bored. A woman in a denim jacket lifted her phone. "I'm calling security," she said. The couple shifted. The woman lowered Omar as if setting down something hot. He stumbled into Nadia. The man released my wrist and raised his hands, palms out. "Misunderstanding," he said. "We're family." "We're not," Nadia said. I bent to grab my shoe, hands shaking. A security guard in a navy blazer was already moving toward us, radio at his mouth. The couple made a choice. The woman slid through the doors into the heat. The man pivoted toward a stairwell. "Sir!" the guard shouted and ran. Another guard sprinted from baggage claim. People parted. The woman with the phone kept filming. The guard chased the man into the stairwell. The sliding doors swallowed the woman. Echoes, shoes, a shout, a thud, and then lobby noise closed over it. The first guard came back, breathing hard and holding the man's visor. "They split up," he told his radio. Female exited curbside. Male went to parking. Lost sight on level 2. Dad arrived frantic, eyes huge. He saw Nadia with Omar, me half in a shoe, a guard with a radio, a stranger filming, and did the math no parent wants. "What happened?" he asked. The word shook. We told it 3 times. The guard took notes. A woman with a badge asked what they looked like. Middle-aged, knit sweater, camera strap, peppermint gum, tan. "Did they say your father's name?" she asked. "Yes," we said. "How might they have known it?" I pulled a paper tag from under my bag strap. Our last name in block letters. Dad stared at it like it had betrayed us, then retied the knot. "They might have heard at the counter," Nadia said. They walked us to a small room with glass walls. A TV played a cartoon with no sound. The officer took a statement and said we'd done the right thing. "We'll pull the cameras," he said. "If we can get a plate, we've got a chance." They didn't find them. Maybe the visor was a prop. Maybe the sweater was a costume. Maybe they were good at being fogged. We still made our flight. On the plane, Dad wrapped his arm around Omar until he fell asleep. I watched the aisle and pretended the air was a wall. Back home, our rules changed. We chose a code word, memorized numbers, and practiced not being polite, saying no, pulling away, yelling help, loud enough to wake the neighbor's dog. In crowds, we picked a boring meeting spot. Years later, I still tie tags tight, then tuck them in. I still watch for smiles that turn into masks. Most days it wears comfortable shoes and says your name right. It says family like a magic word and counts on you to be helpful. When I walk through airports now, I scan carpets and the space near sliding doors. I hear my 10-year-old voice finding its volume. I see Nadia's hand white-knuckled on my arm. I hear Omar's hiccups. I see a visor and a guard's grip that told us nothing. We were lucky. A janitor turned his bucket into a barricade. A stranger held up a phone. Guards were close. Luck isn't a plan, but that day we had it. Sometimes I think about the car the woman walked toward. I picture empty car seats under a hot windshield. Sometimes I picture a trunk. I hate that my mind goes there. Mostly, I remember the carpet and the line where the secure side ends. I remember stepping onto the escalator without thinking because movement felt like agreement. And I remember how the word no felt stone and siren at once. We didn't learn their end. They became a report number and grainy stills. We became kids who practiced yelling in the living room and learned that help can be a strong word if you use it to pull someone back. I learned being polite isn't the same as being good, and that sometimes the bravest thing a kid can do is make a scene. I wish I could say the guards found them or that the visor gave name. The truth is simpler. They vanished into heat and traffic. We boarded quietly. The doors sealed. The wheels lifted. I pressed my forehead to the window and watched the sliding doors shrink to nothing and promised myself that if anyone ever tried to walk me through doors like that again, they'd leave with less than a visor. A quick announcement here. If you're still here and enjoying these stories but haven't subscribed yet, please take a second to do so. Drop a comment too. It really helps push the video out to more people. Your support means everything, and it truly makes my day. Airports are strange places, half dream, half chaos. You're surrounded by thousands of people, but somehow more alone than anywhere else. I was 26 when this happened, traveling back from a conference in New York. My flight out of JFK was delayed by nearly 3 hours. At first I didn't care. I had a book, a charger, and noise-canceling headphones. But after 2 cups of bad coffee, nature demanded its due. I packed up my things and went looking for a restroom. The nearest one was jammed. A line stretched out the door, and the smell hit me before I even got close. I muttered a curse and glanced around. A janitor in a blue uniform was mopping nearby, humming to himself. "Hey," I asked, "is there another bathroom around here? Maybe less crowded?" He stopped mid-swipe, like he'd been waiting for someone to ask. His eyes darted down the hallway, toward a door marked employees only. He lowered his voice. "Yeah, basement level. Hardly anyone uses it. Go through that door, down the stairs, take the left corridor. You'll see it." I hesitated. "I won't get in trouble." He shook his head. "Nah, staff don't care. Cleaner than the rest, too." Then he winked and went back to mopping. It felt like insider knowledge, a secret shortcut. So I thanked him, pushed through the door, and found myself in a narrow stairwell. The hum of the terminal died behind me. Each step down echoed like I was walking deeper into some forgotten chamber. At the bottom, a fluorescent light flickered overhead, buzzing faintly. The corridor stretched long and quiet, lined with locked doors. A yellowed sign pointed left, restrooms. The bathroom was tucked at the end. The door creaked when I pushed it open. Inside, the air smelled faintly of bleach. The room was spotless, unnervingly so, as if no one had used it all day. The silence pressed in like cotton. 3 stalls, 2 urinals, 1 sink, no windows. I chose the middle stall, locked the flimsy latch, and sat down. My phone had no signal here, not even a single bar. That fact alone made my stomach tighten, but I tried to shake it off. Then I heard it, a shuffle. At first I thought it was pipes or maybe the janitor's mop bucket rolling somewhere outside. But then it came again. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, just beyond the bathroom door. I froze, listening. The footsteps stopped right outside. Then the door squealed open. I held my breath, expecting to hear the scuff of shoes heading for a stall or urinal. But the sound didn't come. Whoever it was, they were just standing there. Seconds ticked by. I could feel them, though I couldn't see. The silence was heavy, like the air before a storm. Finally, the footsteps moved, 1, 2, 3, and stopped again, right by my stall. I glanced at the floor. A shadow spilled beneath the partition, motionless. My heart thudded. I told myself it was just another traveler. But then the shadow shifted. Slowly, deliberately, I heard a faint rasp of fabric, and then a creak above me. I looked up. A face was peering over the stall door. Dark eyes, wide and unblinking. Lips curled in the faintest grin. The man's head tilted slightly, like he was studying me the way a cat studies a trapped mouse. I choked out, "What the hell? Get out." My voice cracked. He didn't answer. He just stared, silent, like he was memorizing me. Panic surged hot in my chest. I kicked the door, rattling it, shouting louder, "Get out." That seemed to break something. He dropped back down without a sound. The shadow moved away. The bathroom door creaked open, then shut. I sat there shaking, trying to process what just happened. My mind raced. Should I run? Should I stay? Was he waiting outside? I counted to 30, then shoved open the stall. The bathroom was empty. The sink gleamed. The door stood slightly ajar, hallway light leaking in. I gripped my suitcase handle like a weapon and pushed out cautiously. The corridor was empty too, but it felt wrong. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead, and every locked door seemed to hum with secrets. I quick-stepped to the stairwell, suitcase wheels clattering loud enough to announce me to the world. When I burst back into the terminal, the noise of the crowd hit like a wave. People talking, babies crying, announcements blaring. I never felt so relieved to be surrounded by strangers. I spotted the janitor again, still mopping the same stretch of floor. There was a guy down there, I blurted out. He was watching me in the bathroom. The janitor paused, mop dripping, his brow furrowed. "Basement?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "The one you told me about." He shook his head slowly. "I didn't tell you to go down there." The words hit me like ice water. "You did," I insisted. "You said take the stairs, left corridor." But he was already shaking his head harder. "I don't go telling passengers about that level. It's supposed to be locked up. Nobody should be down there." We just stared at each other. His mop water-pooled at his feet. Finally, he muttered, "You should tell security." I did. A uniformed officer listened patiently while I stumbled through the story. Delays, janitor, basement, the man over the stall. She frowned, scribbling notes, then called it in over her radio. Later, she told me the lower level had cameras, but half of them hadn't been working for months. Maintenance issues, budget cuts. They checked the restroom anyway. Empty, of course. She promised they'd review the footage they had and escort patrols through that corridor more often. But I could see in her eyes she'd heard too many crazy airport stories to believe all of them. I boarded my flight hours later, still trembling, eyes darting to every stranger near me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his dark-wide, hungry. It's been years since that night, but the memory is carved sharp. I don't know what he wanted. Maybe to scare me. Maybe worse. But I know one thing. Airports aren't just crowded, anonymous places. Sometimes, hidden in their basements and corners, they're hunting grounds. And once you've had someone stare at you over a locked stall door, you never quite feel alone in a restroom again. Even now, whenever I travel, I stick to the busiest bathrooms, the ones overflowing with noise and inconvenience. I'd rather stand in line for 20 minutes than risk another quiet corner. Because silence, I learned that day, doesn't mean safety. Silence means you can hear them coming. The whole nightmare began with something so small it felt stupid. My wife losing her wallet and keys at the airport. We had just come back from visiting her sister in Denver. Security had been chaos, everyone rushing, bins sliding through the scanner. Somehow, when we got to our gate, Anna patted her pockets and froze. Her wallet and the little clip of keys attached to it were gone. We retraced every step, asked TSA, checked lost, and found nothing. By the time our boarding call echoed through the terminal, we had to give up. Someone probably grabbed it by mistake. I told her, "We'll cancel the cards when we land." It seemed like an inconvenience, stressful, but manageable. What we didn't realize was that we'd just given someone the blueprint to our lives. The flight back home was quiet. Anna filled out the card cancellation forms on her phone, while I reassured her we'd change the locks first thing in the morning. We joked that maybe it was the universe telling us to finally upgrade the rusty old deadbolt. When we pulled into our driveway that night, the house looked normal. Porch light glowing, curtains drawn. I unlocked the front door with my spare set, carried in our bags, and felt that small wave of relief that always comes with being home. But then the unease started. The air inside was wrong, colder than it should have been for summer, with a faint draft. And our cat, Molly, who always greeted us at the door, was nowhere to be seen. Maybe she's hiding, Anna said, but her voice had that edge of doubt. We carried the luggage inside. That's when I noticed the faint scuff marks on the hardwood near the entryway, almost like shoes dragging. My first thought was the pet sitter, but we hadn't used one this time. I walked into the living room. My stomach dropped. The place was a mess. Cushions tossed, drawers half open, books knocked off shelves. It wasn't chaotic like a burglary rush. It was slow, deliberate, like someone had been looking for something. Anna, I called, trying to keep my voice steady, stay by the door. She came in anyway, gasping when she saw the state of the room. Oh my God. I moved cautiously down the hall. Bedroom, drawers open. Closet, half the clothes pushed aside. Bathroom, medicine cabinet swung wide. Bottles lined up on the sink like someone had inspected each one. That's when I heard it. A sound from the upstairs bathroom. Slow, deliberate. Not pipes. Not settling wood. Breathing. I froze in the hallway. Anna whispered, "What is it?" I pressed a finger to my lips. From behind the closed bathroom door, the floor creaked. Then silence. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but something colder kept me rooted, staring at that door. Finally, I forced myself forward. My hand shook as I reached for the knob. It turned before I touched it. The door cracked open, inch by inch. And then I saw him. A man, unbelievably tall, shoulders nearly filling the frame. His eyes were wide, unblinking, gleaming almost too white in the dim light. He didn't look surprised. He looked expectant, like we just walked into his house. For a second, none of us moved. My throat went dry. Anna whispered my name from behind me, terrified. The man tilted his head, studying us. Then, without a word, he darted backward, shoved the window open, and launched himself out into the night. I sprinted to the window in time to see him drop onto the lawn and vanish into the shadows beyond our yard. The speed of him, impossibly fast, like he'd rehearsed the exit. Anna grabbed my arm. "We have to call the police." We did. 2 cruisers showed up within minutes, lights flashing against the walls of our violated home. Officers combed through the rooms, asked for descriptions, dusted half-heartedly for prints. When I told them about the wallet and keys being stolen at the airport, one of the officers nodded grimly. It happens. They tag luggage, watch for addresses, wait until they know you're out of town. Keys make it easy. No forced entry, no alarms. That detail chilled me. He hadn't broken in. He'd let himself in, like he belonged. We spent the night at a friend's place, neither of us able to close our eyes. Every creak sounded like his footsteps. Every shadow stretched too tall. The next day we changed the locks, installed cameras, even bought a new alarm system. But none of it erased the memory of those wide, staring eyes in our bathroom doorway. For weeks afterward, I'd wake in the night convinced I heard breathing in the hall. Sometimes Molly would hiss at corners of the room, tail puffed out, ears flat. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe she remembered him too. The police never caught him. They told us he probably moved on, maybe pawned whatever he took. But I know better. He wasn't just stealing things. He was studying us, searching through our lives like a book, learning details, rehearsing how it would feel to walk our floors, open our drawers, breathe our air. And when we surprised him, he didn't panic. He smiled, because for a little while, our house wasn't ours anymore. It was his. That's the part one can't shake. That awful intimacy of a stranger living inside your silence. Even now, whenever we leave for a trip, I double-check every lock 3 times. I set cameras, alarms, timers. But sometimes, late at night, I catch myself imagining him still out there, watching, waiting with another set of stolen keys. And I wonder if next time, he won't run. Night shift at DFW has its own weather. After midnight, the air turns thin and metallic, and the hangar lights float in the dark like a ship at sea. That glow used to calm me. It meant the world was asleep, and our crew were the last line between passengers and gravity. The first signal that something was wrong was small enough to ignore. A narrow body rolled into Bay 2 with a note from the flight deck. Unusual vibration on climb. Resolved after level off. I've seen 100 of those, and 99 end up being nothing. I logged the complaint, popped panels, and ran a finger over the safety paint that tells you whether a fastener has moved. One line didn't match. Not scraped, not broken, just a hair off. You feel that kind of thing more than you see it. Witness marks off, I told Luis. Probably painted sloppy on last check, he said, but his voice didn't believe himself. We retorqued, replaced the suspect hardware, and released the aircraft after a clean run-up. I went home at dawn, showered, and stared at the ceiling while coffee went cold. The feeling didn't wash off. 2 nights later, a different tale came in, with control feel slightly abnormal during taxi. Nothing dramatic, but I found a fastener that fought me going back in, like the threads were tired. We didn't cut corners, we never do, but I left the hangar that morning with the same dread rolling in my gut. By the end of the week, the pattern had a shape. Odd write-ups on different aircraft, different gates, different crews. Nothing to trigger headlines. Just little insults that implied a pair of hands had touched things we relied on staying untouched. There was another detail I couldn't prove. The handwriting on one of the original discrepancy notes looked familiar. Flat-topped 7s, rounded A's. The same style of guy on our crew used to have. Kevin Lawson. He'd been one of us, quick, cocky, funny when you needed it, quiet when the job required both hands and no mouth. Then a random test, a meeting, and a walk of shame with his tools boxed and badge disabled. I didn't think about him again until I saw that 7. I kept my mouth shut one more night, because accusing a ghost can make you the crazy one. Then we had the near miss. A red-eye rejected takeoff at 2:41 a.m. The captain felt a shudder and brought her back. We swarmed the jet, still steaming on the brakes. 10 minutes later, Luis called me over with a voice that did not want to be right. What he pointed to is the kind of component you only touch when you must, and always with a second set of eyes. It hadn't failed, but it had been set to be more vulnerable than it should have been. I won't say exactly how. That knowledge should stay behind locked doors. Security came. The night manager pulled attendance logs going back a month, and we started stacking data like sandbags. Someone in a suit asked if an outsider could have gotten close. We said no on reflex. Then we all looked up at the lattice of ducts and catwalks 4 stories above us. Locks and badges don't mean much if you live in the ceiling, Luis muttered. It was a joke. It didn't feel like one. We added extra witness marks. We paired up on critical tasks. We checked our own egos and each other's work. The hangar felt different. Every echo, a footstep, every motion sensor a heartbeat. Midweek, I moved a scissor lift under a rattling duct because I was tired of wondering. The catwalk steel was gritty with dust when I stepped off the basket and clicked on my headlamp. I found a ceiling tile sitting a hair off its frame like a tongue depressor not put back right. I nudged it with a gloved finger. Cold air breathed out, tasting of insulation and old rubber. Something shifted in that darkness, too quiet for a person, too heavy for a rat. Hear anything? Security asked over the radio when I called it in. Just the building breathing, I said, eyes on the gap. They swept the rafters and found a sleeping pad above the utility office, a handful of protein bar wrappers, and a cracked handheld scanner that could pick up tower and ramp frequencies. It didn't find a person. The next night, we found a footprint in dust where no footprint should be. The night after, a tool not on any of our kits, left like a calling card on a ledge. We were being mocked by someone who knew our timings, our routes, our blind spots. I finally said Lawson's name out loud in the break room. No one argued. Priya pulled up a photo of 2 different logs from 2 different nights and showed us a note in the margin where the 7 had a flat top. We all knew what that meant. We also knew saying sabotage would invite people who've never touched a wrench to start managing the hands that do. At least call the union, Dana said. We did. And then, because evil has timing, I heard Lawson's voice. It was a Sunday, 20 minutes past 3, the hour when your body barely belongs to the world. I was under the belly of a jet, clicking through a checklist I could do by scent. The word drifted down from above like a comment from God. Careful with that, the voice said, amused. Wouldn't want a mistake. I rolled out so fast I slammed my head and saw stars. When they cleared, I saw a silhouette crouched on the catwalk, just beyond full light. The hoodie was the same navy he used to wear. Even from 2 stories down, I could feel the grin. Kevin, I said. I don't like the way my last name sounds in your mouth, he replied. What do you want? Same thing I wanted when they show me the door, he said. For somebody to hear the sentence after the first one. He moved along the catwalk like he owned it, in and out of shadow. I followed underneath, staying where the ladder was, not taking my eyes off him. You're gonna get people hurt, I said. I could have, he said. I didn't. His voice went from light to flat. You and I both know the difference. He wasn't wrong. We caught everything so far. He was proud of that, as if our vigilance was proof his point had landed. Schedules were too tight. Maintenance got squeezed until something had to squeal. He paused above the big fan at Bay 1, where the catwalk hums if you shift your weight wrong. They moved my badge to the trash, he said. Didn't move the deadlines. Didn't add bodies. Didn't fix the vents that freeze your fingers in January. Come down, I said. We'll talk with people who can change things. Offices make problems neat, he said. Neat problems don't get fixed. He started to turn, and the grate squealed. He steadied himself with a hand on a beam, and for a heartbeat, I saw a man thinner than I remembered, haggard where he used to be cocky. Whatever crusade he'd built in his head had not been kind to him. Security's coming, I lied. Don't run. He laughed without humor. I know which camera blinks when the heater kicks on. I know where your motion sensors point. You think I lived up here because the floor was lava? I lived up here because the ceiling is a map. Then you know maps end, I said. I took the lift up, stepped onto the grate, and kept my hands where he could see them. We stood 10 yards apart. I leveled for the first time since the day he left. The hangar looked like a valley from up there, plains gleaming like lakes under a winter sun. You always did the little squeeze after the click, he said, almost fond. He mimed it with thumb and forefinger. You don't trust torque alone. I trust proof, I said. And the proof right now is that you need help. He looked past me toward the ladder where footsteps were rising. Real this time. His jaw clenched. His heel nudged a ridge of steel, and the catwalk shivered. You're going to fall, I said, and I meant it. I don't fall, he said, but his eyes flicked down. I closed the distance slow, hands open. He didn't retreat. When I reached him, I caught his wrist. His skin was cold and shakier than pride likes to allow. We stood like that while the catwalk sang, and the hangar breathed, and the steps on the ladder got loud. He didn't fight when they cuffed him. Pride was all he had left to lift his chin. On the floor, he looked smaller than any memory. Just another tired man in a hoodie that didn't fit. He never looked back up at me. Later, they inventoried the rafters like a crime scene, which it was. 2 nests. One above the utility office with the sleeping pad and scanner. Another above the parts cage with a paper duct map annotated in pencil. Narrow squeeze here, camera dead there. Food wrappers. A notebook full of grievances and diagrams. Some ideas were impossible. Some weren't. I'm grateful for every place where he only wrote. The news never said sabotage. Official statements used words like irregularities and enhanced oversight. Lockford changed again. Cameras sprouted in corners like metal mushrooms. A couple more bodies were added to night shift. Deadlines breathed out, by an inch. The union made speeches. Management made promises. Up there you feel above it all, but every mistake drops. Do I hate him? Some nights. He held a match near a room full of sleeping people and called it a point. He made the hangar feel haunted without needing any ghosts. He taught me there are two kinds of horror, the kind with teeth and fog, and the kind with fingerprints and a badge that used to work. Other nights, I think about his heel slipping and how quick his eyes check the grate. Some changes will fade. Not in my bay. We write the time we need, not the time the spreadsheet wants. We count our hardware out loud. We pair on anything that can kill. We stop long enough to feel the difference between a good click and a liar. We keep our promises to people who will never know we existed. On my last night of the week, I drove home down the service road that runs parallel to the runway. A string of landing lights hung in the dark like a constellation pulled close. A jet floated down so softly I could believe in gentle machines. I rolled the window down and let the smell of jet fuel and old rain in, the scent I've loved since I was a kid watching planes with my dad through chain link. Slow is smooth, I told the empty car. Smooth is safe. It sounded corny alone, but it's the only prayer I know. Kevin Lawson will have his day in a courtroom. People in suits will choose careful words. But the truth lives here, on our hands at 3 in the morning, where horror is just another word for what happens when care is replaced by hurry. So we work slower where it matters. We listen harder than before. We look up when the building breathes. And when the torque wrench clicks, I still give it the little squeeze, and I still breathe out, and the hangar, our ship at sea, feels steady again. When people ask me why I transferred to international routes, I don't tell them the truth. I say it was for the adventure, or the higher pay, or the chance to see Paris twice a month. Those things are true enough. But the real reason was a man. I was 29, 3 years into working as a flight attendant on domestic flights. I loved the job, the rhythm of boarding calls, the soft thump of overhead bins closing, the strange intimacy of being locked in a flying tube with strangers. Sure, it was tiring, but I liked people. I liked the little human moments. Then came him. The first time, he was just another frequent flyer. Neat haircut, pressed shirt, carry on with stickers from places I'd never been. He smiled at me as I handed out drinks. "You've got a calm voice," he said, like it was a compliment. I smiled back politely and moved on. That was normal. Passengers flirt, passengers chat. You get used to it. But the second time, 2 weeks later, there he was again. Same route, same seat. "You remembered me, right?" he asked. His tone wasn't playful. It was expectant. I laughed lightly. "We see a lot of people." He leaned in. "I remembered you." The words lodged in me like a splinter. After that, he started showing up more often. Always on my flights, always in the first few rows where he could watch me work. He didn't cause trouble, never raised his voice, never broke rules. But he asked questions. Too many questions. "So, how's your apartment? Still got that balcony? Do your parents still live near the coast? But you take the Q train when you're off duty." Huh. The first time he mentioned the balcony, I nearly dropped a tray. I had posted a single photo on Instagram months earlier, a sunset shot with railing in the corner. I didn't realize a stranger could connect that to me so quickly. I stopped posting after that, but he didn't stop knowing things. When I switched schedules to pick up a red eye, he was there. When I swapped routes with a colleague, he somehow managed to be on that flight too. He joked once, "Guess we're meant to travel together." His eyes didn't joke. I reported it to my supervisor, but what could I say? He hadn't touched me. He hadn't threatened me. He was just present. Too present. They told me to keep an eye out and let us know if he gets disruptive. Then the hotel incident started. On layovers, crews often stay at the same chain hotels. We sign in, crash, then leave early the next morning. One night in Chicago, I walked through the lobby and froze. He was at the bar, sipping a drink like he belonged there. He raised his glass to me, smiling. I didn't tell the others. I didn't want to sound paranoid. But the next month, in Dallas, he was there again. Different hotel, same routine, sitting in the lobby, waiting. I started taking side exits, using service elevators, changing my walk to the airport. It didn't matter. He always found the right place. The breaking point came in winter. I just finished a grueling turnaround and dragged myself home, desperate for sleep. My apartment was on the 4th floor of a walk-up. As I rounded the corner, suitcase rattling behind me, I saw a figure across the street. It was him. He had a camera. He raised it and clicked. I felt ice climb my spine. I didn't go inside. I wheeled my bag past like I was just another neighbor, heart hammering. I ducked into a coffee shop and called my friend Elise, another flight attendant. She told me flat out, "You need to report this. Now." So I did. The airline listened more seriously when I mentioned the camera. Security took statements. HR sent polite emails full of "we take this seriously" and "passenger relations are being reviewed." They promised to flag his name in the booking system. But weeks later, I still saw him. He never caused a scene. He never broke a law I could prove. He just hovered, always 2 steps behind, always smiling like we shared some private joke. I stopped sleeping well. I kept curtains drawn. I jumped at shadows. Finally, I made a decision. I bid for international routes. Longer flights, different cities, unpredictable rosters. Harder for him to track. When my schedule came back and I saw Paris, London, Tokyo, I cried from sheer relief. The first time I boarded a 777 bound for Charles de Gaulle, I scanned the passenger list like a hawk. His name wasn't there. For once, the cabin felt safe. And it stayed that way. For months, he didn't appear. I let myself breathe again. I even laughed with crew on layovers, walked outside hotels in daylight, posted one cautious photo of a cafe in Paris. But here's the thing about fear. Once it's planted, it doesn't leave. Every time I open my front door, I glance across the street, half expecting him with that camera. Every flight, I check the manifest twice. Every hotel lobby, I scan faces before stepping through. He hasn't shown himself again. Maybe the airline really did flag him. Maybe he found a new obsession. Or maybe he's still watching from farther away, waiting for a moment when I relax completely. People still ask me, "What's the scariest thing you've seen as a flight attendant? Turbulence? Drunk passengers?" I smile and shake my head. I don't tell them the truth. The scariest thing isn't chaos in the air. It's the quiet certainty that someone out there has memorized your life and refuses to let go. I was counting down my last flights before retirement. 35 years in the cockpit, thousands of hours logged, more sunrises from 30,000 feet than I could remember. Flying had shaped my life. Discipline, patience, trust in the crew beside me. But in those last weeks, something happened that I still can't explain. Something that made me wonder if leaving when I did wasn't just smart, but necessary. It started on a routine hop from Dallas to Phoenix. Clear skies, light passenger load, a crew I trusted. I'd flown that route so many times I could have done it in my sleep. About 40 minutes after takeoff, the first officer noticed it. "Captain, heading drift." I glanced at the instruments. Our navigation showed us veering slightly north, edging toward a line of restricted military airspace I knew well. My stomach tightened. "Correcting," I said, hand steady on the yoke. I realigned us, tapped the display. Must be a glitch. The correction held. For a while. Then it happened again. The system wanted to pull us back off course, like a magnet tugging at a compass. But every time I cross-checked the raw data, our position, the stars outside, even the old-fashioned backup instruments confirmed where we actually were. The glitch was in the NAV display itself. By the time we landed, I convinced myself it was a one-off error. Electronics, act up. I'd seen stranger. Maintenance ran checks, cleared the system, and signed the plane off. But 2 flights later, the same thing happened. Different aircraft, different weather, same interference. This time the drift was sharper, more insistent. I caught the first officer glancing at me, waiting for reassurance. "It's fine," I told him, forcing calm. "Manual navigation is solid. We fly the route. The tech guys will sort it out later." He nodded, but his jaw was tight. After we landed, I filed a report. Maintenance shrugged, checked wiring, found nothing. "Probably just satellite hiccups," they said. "It happens." I wanted to believe them. I almost did, until the 3rd time. That night we were eastbound, full cabin, moonless sky. The air felt too still, as if holding its breath. Halfway over New Mexico, the NAV system glitched again, but this time it wasn't subtle. The screen shifted hard, showing us angling directly into restricted military space. And then, over the radio, a burst of static, followed by a voice. Not air traffic control. Not any frequency I recognized. "Turn now," it said, flat and mechanical. "Turn." My blood ran cold. "Repeat," my first officer asked, voice sharp. Silence. Then more static. I gripped the yoke tighter. Whoever that was, they were broadcasting illegally on aviation channels. Dangerous and deeply illegal. And they knew exactly where to hit us. Our NAV system. "Maintain course manually," I said. My first officer nodded, fingers dancing over backup instruments. The plane was fine. We were fine. But whoever was on that frequency wanted us to think otherwise. The interference stopped after a few minutes. By the time we landed, my shirt was plastered to my back with sweat. I reported everything. Audio, logs, my testimony. The airline investigated, said they'd coordinate with the FAA. I got a lot of polite thank yous and very few actual answers. But then it happened again. This time, the interference started during climb out, right after takeoff. The NAV screen stuttered, froze, then redrew our path toward restricted airspace. The same synthetic voice broke through the static. "You don't belong here." The words hit like ice. My first officer went pale. We switched frequencies, but the voice followed like it had been waiting. "You don't belong here." It repeated over and over until finally the interference dropped. I felt anger more than fear then. Whoever this was, they were inside our systems, and they weren't just random hackers. They had equipment strong enough to hijack communication with a commercial airliner and knowledge precise enough to target restricted zones. That wasn't some kid in a basement. That was deliberate. After we landed, the airline grounded the aircraft for 2 days. The FAA promised a full investigation. They brought in tech experts, combed through logs. They told us nothing, but word spread among pilots. A few admitted they'd seen similar glitches, systems briefly redirecting toward military zones, followed by bursts of static. Most brushed it off as coincidence, but I saw the fear behind their eyes. On my very last flight, it happened one final time. We were cruising at 36,000, smooth air, quiet cockpit. I'd almost convinced myself the nightmare was behind me. Then the NAV screen glitched harder than ever. Our path redrew straight into a stretch of restricted desert airspace. The voice came through again. "This is the last one." I'll never forget those words. I took manual control, confirmed with backups, steered us steady. My first officer stared at me, waiting for orders. "Ignore it," I said, even though my hands were trembling. "We fly the plane. Nothing else matters." The voice repeated once more, softer this time, as if it were fading. "This is the last one." Then silence. We landed without incident. The passengers never knew. But as I taxied to the gate, I realized I wasn't sorry to leave flying behind. I love the sky, but whatever that was, hacker, saboteur, something stranger, it wanted us afraid. And I was tired of giving it space in my head. I retired a week later. Even now, when I hear static on a radio, I sometimes think I catch an echo of that voice. Flat, mechanical, certain. You don't belong here. I used to think the strangest thing about red-eye flights was how time folded. You board in darkness, sleep in a metal coffin, and wake up with the sun behind a different horizon. But that night, on my way to London, I learned time can do stranger tricks, like swallowing a person whole. I was a tech worker, flying for a client meeting I'd been dreading. The flight was half full, quiet. People hunched into hoodies, screens glowing faintly, the cabin humming like a lullaby. He boarded last. An older man, maybe late 60s, well-dressed in a charcoal suit. Silver hair combed back, leather shoes polished. He carried only a slim briefcase. His boarding pass crinkled as he slid into seat 41A. Window side, 3 rows behind me. Something about him stood out. Not just the clothes, but the way he carried himself. Calm, deliberate, like someone used to being noticed. He nodded politely at the woman beside him, then turned to the window and stayed that way even as we took off. Hours passed. The flight attendants dimmed the lights. Most of the cabin drifted into half sleep. I got up once, stretching my legs, and glanced at him. He wasn't sleeping, just staring out into the dark Atlantic. No screen, no book, no drink. Just that endless gaze. At some point I dozed off. When I woke, the seatbelt light was on. A patch of turbulence jolted us, making the overhead bins rattle. I rubbed my eyes, looked back, and his seat was empty. Not just empty, wrong. His blanket was folded neatly. His briefcase was gone. The seatbelt buckled. The woman who'd been next to him was asleep, head tilted back, oblivious. I frowned. Maybe he was in a lavatory. I waited. Minutes passed. No one returned. I finally got up, curious. I walked the aisle, checked both bathrooms. Occupied signs blinked on one side, but when the door opened, a teenager shuffled out. The other was empty. No older man. I checked the galley. 2 flight attendants poured coffee. "Excuse me," I whispered. "The passenger in 41A, did he move seats?" They exchanged a look. 41A, one repeated. "Yes." Older gentleman, gray hair, suit. He was behind me. The attendant frowned, pulled up a tablet with the passenger list. She scrolled, then shook her head. "No one's assigned to 41A on this flight." My skin prickled. That can't be right. I saw him board. I watched him sit down. She smiled politely, the kind of smile you give someone jet-lagged and confused. Sometimes people sit in the wrong seat before takeoff, then move. But there's no record of anyone in 41A. I went back, unsettled. The seat looked untouched now, like it had never been used. Even the cushions seemed firmer, uncreased. The woman beside it was still asleep, undisturbed. I told myself I was overtired. Long work week, red-eye haze, imagination filling gaps. But the certainty gnawed at me. He had been there. The flight landed at Heathrow just after dawn. Everyone shuffled off, bleary-eyed, hurting toward customs. I lingered, watching passengers file past. I never saw him. At baggage claim, I asked again, this time to a different crew member. The man from 41, did he get off? Her brow furrowed. "Sir, there was no 41A passenger on our manifest." She tapped her roster sheet. Seat was empty. I left the airport shaken, dragging my suitcase through gray London drizzle, trying to convince myself I was losing my mind. But 2 weeks later, back home, curiosity won. I called the airline. I asked casually, pretending it was a billing issue. "Can you confirm if seat 41A was booked on flight 452 to London last month?" The agent clicked away on her keyboard. I'm showing 41A unoccupied, sir. Not even standby upgrade. Someone moving seats. No, sir. That seat was blocked. It wasn't available to book. Blocked. My chest tightened. I pressed for details. The agent grew hesitant. Finally, she said, "Sometimes seats are kept unavailable for operational reasons." What reasons? I can't disclose specifics, sir. Her tone ended the call. That night, I searched online. Forums, pilot boards, conspiracy threads. Buried deep, I found a handful of scattered posts. Passenger disappeared from seat 41A JFK. Eldchar, 2012. Crew denied he was ever there. Why is 41A blocked? On some aircraft configs. Friends saw a man vanish mid-flight. Airlines cover it up. They always say the seat is unoccupied. Most replies mock them. Hallucinations, sleep deprivation, red-eye paranoia. But reading those words, I felt less alone. Someone else had seen. I still fly for work, but I avoid that row religiously. If I book a seat map and see 41A grayed out, I change flights. My coworkers think I'm picky. I don't correct them, because sometimes, late at night, I remember his face, calm, dignified, staring out at the black Atlantic as if he knew something the rest of US didn't. And I wonder, did he ever exist? Or did I glimpse someone the plane itself had already forgotten? I've flown enough for work that the rhythms of airports don't faze me anymore. Boarding groups, overhead bin wars, the endless shuffle of people staring at their phones. I thought I'd seen every kind of odd passenger behavior. But one night, on a routine business trip, I learned that sometimes the smallest choice, a seat swap, can drag you into someone else's nightmare. It was a late flight from Denver to Boston, mostly business travelers like me. I had an aisle seat, 17C. I was glad for it. Easy bathroom access, no climbing over strangers. I just settled in when a man appeared beside me. He looked nervous. Not sick, not drunk, just restless, glancing around too much, shifting on his feet. He was maybe mid-30s, ordinary build, baseball cap pulled low. "Hey," he said, voice tight. "Any chance you'd switch with me? I got 19A, but I really need an aisle." Normally I decline. I pay extra for aisle. But his urgency caught me. He wasn't whining. He was desperate. "Sure," I said, surprising myself. "No problem." His shoulders sagged with relief. "Thanks, man. You're doing me a huge favor." We swapped. I slid into his seat, window side, 2 rows back. He buckled in quickly in my old spot, head down. The flight was uneventful. I half dozed, read a little, stared out at the patchwork of lights below. Nothing strange. When we landed in Boston just after midnight, everyone shuffled off groggy but calm. I wheeled my carry-on through the jet bridge, thinking only of my hotel bed. That's when I noticed something. At the gate, 2 uniformed men stood waiting. Not airline staff, federal agents by the look of them. They scanned the stream of passengers, eyes sharp. One pointed. "That's him." They walked straight toward the guy who'd taken my seat. Before he even cleared the jet bridge fully, they grabbed his arms. Passengers gasped. He didn't fight, just froze, eyes wide. "You're under arrest," one agent said. His voice carried, sharp and final. My heart kicked hard. People slowed, whispering. The agents pulled the man aside, cuffed him, read rights. His cap slipped, revealing sweat slicking his forehead. And then I saw it. His eyes locked on mine. Just for a second, as if to say, "I put you in that seat." A chill ran through me. I kept walking, forcing myself not to look back. At baggage claim, the scene repeated in my head. His urgency, the swap, his relief, the arrest. Finally, I couldn't take it. I approached an airport police officer near the carousel. "Excuse me," I said, trying to sound casual. "Do you know why someone was just arrested off my flight?" He gave me a measured look. Sir, I can't disclose details. I think I sat in his seat, I blurted. I switched with him before takeoff. That got his attention. He pulled me aside, asked for my name, ID, contact info. You'll be contacted, he said flatly. I left the airport shaking. 2 days later, I got a call from federal agent. His tone was polite, but clipped. We're following up about your flight from Denver. You mentioned switching seats. Yes, I said. He asked me to. Why? What was under the seat? Silence stretched on the line. Then, I can't discuss the specifics. But I'll say this. You should consider yourself very lucky. Lucky? That man knew what he was doing. If you hadn't switched, things might have gone very differently for you. The line clicked dead. I didn't sleep much after that. My brain replayed every second. His anxious request, my careless agreement, the way his eyes found mine as he was cuffed. What was under my seat, his seat? Drugs? Weapons? Something worse? I'll never know. Now, whenever I board a plane, I keep my ticket clenched tight. If anyone asks me to switch seats, even politely, even desperately, I shake my head. Because that night, I realized something terrible. Sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is help a stranger. The night I got stranded in a Wisconsin airport, I thought the worst part would be boredom. I was wrong. Our crew, me, Elise, and Tom, had finished a long day of short-haul flights. We were supposed to deadhead home, but a snowstorm barreled in faster than forecast predicted. Flights canceled one by one until the departure board was a wall of red. The airport was small, regional. By midnight, every passenger had either rented a car or found hotel. Only staff and a skeleton security crew remained. Someone told us the roads were impassable and no hotel shuttles were running. So it was just the three of us, stranded overnight in a terminal that suddenly felt much larger than it had during the day. At first, we made the best of it. Tom raided a vending machine. Elise stretched across a row of seats, tried a nap. I wandered the concourse, the silence ringing in my ears. Airports are meant to hum with voices and movement. Without them, the place felt hollow. Then the oddities began. The first was footprints. Around 2 a.m., I walked past a glass door leading to the snowy tarmac. There, stamped in melting slush, were footprints leading into the terminal. Not ours, too large, too heavy, but the door was locked from the inside. I showed Tom. He frowned. Maybe a maintenance guy came through earlier. Then where'd he go? I asked. The prints stopped just beyond the threshold, as if whoever made them had vanished. We shrugged it off, but unease lodged in my chest. The second was the noises. While Elise dozed, Tom and I sat near the gate, trading stories to kill time. That's when we heard it, a faint scraping like something dragging across tile. It came from down the darkened concourse. Tom stood, peering into the shadows. Probably cleaning staff, he muttered, but no lights flickered on, no machines whirred. Just silence after the scrape. We didn't mention it to Elise. By 4 a.m., fatigue pressed on me. I stretched out on a row of seats, trying to rest. I must have drifted off, because the next thing I knew, Elise was gone. I sat bolt upright. Tom, where's Elise? He blinked awake. What do you mean? She was right there. Her bag was still on the seat. Her jacket too, but no Elise. We called her name, our voices echoing down the empty concourse. No answer. Panic sharpened the air. We split up, me heading toward security, Tom toward baggage claim. I walked fast, every shadow a threat, every sound magnified. Then I saw her. She stood at the far end of the concourse, facing the windows that looked out onto the snowy runway. Her posture was strange, rigid, arms hanging loose. Elise, I called. She didn't turn. I hurried closer. As I neared, she finally shifted, looking at me with eyes that seemed wrong, dazed, like she wasn't fully awake. Elise, are you okay? She blinked slowly, then whispered, "I thought I heard someone calling me." "Who?" Her mouth opened, closed. She shook her head. "I don't know." It sounded familiar. I let her back, unsettled. Tom gave me a questioning look, but we didn't press her. She sat quietly, staring at the floor, as if listening for something we couldn't hear. The rest of the night dragged. No more footprints, no more scraping. Just silence heavy as the snow piling outside. By morning, plows had cleared the roads. Passengers trickled in for the first flights of the day, laughter and chatter filling the empty space. The spell broke, but Elise never quite returned to herself. On the ride back, she barely spoke. Later, during another trip, she admitted she couldn't remember leaving us that night. "One minute I was lying down," she said softly. "The next, I was at the window, like something pulled me there." She transferred bases soon after. Tom joked about cursed airports, but I knew he felt it too, that chill in our bones when we realized we weren't alone in that terminal. Sometimes, when I see snow falling heavy outside a concourse window, I remember the footprints that led nowhere. The scrape in the silence. The way Elise's voice trembled when she said she'd heard someone calling her. And I wonder if airports, emptied of people, remember every soul that's ever passed through, and sometimes call one back. I've never been afraid of turbulence. Uncomfortable, sure. Inconvenient, absolutely. But fear? No. I've flown too often for work. I knew the bumps were just air currents, invisible waves of pressure. Pilots handled worse every day. But that changed on a late flight to Seattle, when I sat 2 rows behind a man who treated turbulence like it was his personal revelation. The night started normally enough. I boarded, laptop bag slung over my shoulder, settling into my seat near the middle of the cabin. Passengers shuffled around me, a blur of bags, size overhead bins slamming shut. That's when I noticed him. He wore a green windbreaker zipped high to his chin. Mid-40s maybe, thin face, eyes that darted too quickly. He sat stiffly, hands clutched around his phone as if it were the only thing anchoring him. At first, I barely paid attention. Business flights are full of odd characters. But then we hit turbulence an hour in, sharp jolts that rattled trays and set a baby crying. Most people groaned or clenched armrests. He smiled, not a nervous smile, a genuine one, and he started typing furiously on his phone. The cabin lights were dim, but from where I sat I could see the glow of his screen. My seatmate leaned forward too, curious. The man's thumbs moved quick, frantic, like he was confessing something before time ran out. Between jolts, I caught glimpses of the messages. "This is it. We deserve this. Forgive me." Each vibration of the plane seemed to thrill him more. His smile stretched wider. When one jolt sent a cup of water tumbling into the aisle, he let out a soft laugh. I felt my skin crawl. I nudged the flight attendant as she passed, murmuring, "Something's off about that guy." She gave me a professional smile, the kind that says we'll handle it, and moved on. But no one handled it. The turbulence worsened. The plane's shutter dipped. Gasps rippled through the cabin. My stomach flipped, hands gripping the armrest. And still he typed, still he grinned, as if each violent shake was proof of something. At one point, the lights flickered. He closed his eyes, tilted his head back, and whispered, audibly enough that I heard over the engines, "Yes." When the turbulence finally eased, the rest of us sagged in relief. People laughed nervously, flight attendants reassured passengers, and the baby quieted. Normal life resumed, but not for him. He just sat there, still clutching his phone, still smiling faintly like the chaos had been a gift meant only for him. I couldn't shake it. As we descended into Seattle, I kept one eye fixed on him. He didn't move, didn't check his bag, didn't even put his phone away. He just stared out the window, expression unreadable. We landed with a heavy thump. The seatbelt sign chimed off. Everyone stood, stretching, reaching for luggage. I blinked once, and when I looked again, he was gone. Not moved down the aisle, gone. Not slipped past while I looked away, gone. Gone. His seat was empty. No bag. No jacket. The woman beside him frowned, glancing around like she, too, had expected him to stand. I asked her quietly, "Where'd the guy in the windbreaker go?" She shook her head. He never said a word the whole flight. I thought he was still sitting there. I waited until almost everyone had deplaned, craning my neck to catch a glimpse. Nothing. He wasn't in line, wasn't in the aisle, wasn't anywhere. When I stepped into the jet bridge, 2 TSA officers stood with a flight attendant. They seemed tense, whispering. I slowed, listening. "No record of him," one said. "Checked manifest twice," the other replied. "But a passenger saw him," the attendant insisted. The officers noticed me hovering. "Sir, please keep moving." I walked on, heart thudding. At baggage claim, I scanned the crowd again and again. No green windbreaker. No thin face. No darting eyes. The next morning, still rattled, I searched news sites. Nothing. No arrests. No reports. Just silence. And yet I can't forget the way he smiled during the turbulence. The way his thumbs hammered out those messages. "This is it. We deserve this. Forgive me." Who was he writing to? Did anyone receive them? Most of all, how does a man sit in a seat for 4 hours and then vanish before the plane even empties? Even now, years later, I can't sit through turbulence without remembering his grin. I used to believe rough air was nothing more than physics, but that night taught me something different. Turbulence isn't just the sky moving. Sometimes it's a curtain shaking, and you never know what's waiting on the other side. I was 23 when this happened, traveling alone for a job interview in Charlotte, North Carolina. Airports already made me uneasy. Too many faces, too much noise, all pretending like the whole world wasn't gathered in one building. But that day in 2014, my nerves weren't just from flying. Something felt heavier. I had gotten through security early and planted myself near my gate. Earbuds in, but no music playing. That's my trick to keep strangers away while still hearing everything. I was flipping through my notes when a man sat across from me. He was older, maybe late 50s, wearing a rumpled sport coat and carrying no luggage. His eyes stayed on me too long. The kind of look that makes your shoulders tighten before your brain even registers why. "You're heading to Charlotte?" he asked, voice low. I didn't answer right away. My first instinct was to lie, but the boarding sign behind me gave it away. "Yeah," I said finally. He leaned closer. "You need to listen to me. 2 men on that flight are waiting for you. When you land, they'll try to take you." I blinked at him, confused. "What?" He held my gaze. His face wasn't threatening, just urgent, like he was trying to pass me a burning match without anyone noticing. "I don't know why you, but I know it's you. They'll grab you outside baggage claim. They got a van." I laughed nervously, though it came out dry. "Okay, sure. Thanks for the warning, I guess." I turned away, trying to look annoyed, not shaken. But he didn't leave. "I'm not joking. They'll hide near the pickup lane. Do not go alone. Wait until people are around you." A gate announcement cut through the tension. Pre-boarding. Families, military, then rows. The man stood abruptly. "I've said what I can. Watch yourself." He walked off in the opposite direction, not toward the gate, not toward security, just gone. I sat frozen. My brain tried to file him under harmless crazy. Airports attract those. But something in his eyes lingered. He hadn't asked for money. He hadn't ranted. He just warned me. On the plane, I told myself to forget it. I stuffed my bag overhead, took my middle seat, and tried to focus on the interview waiting for me tomorrow. But paranoia spread like ink in water. Every time I glanced around, I tried to guess. Who were the two men? The guy in a leather jacket who kept scanning the aisle? The pair in suits talking too quietly? Or maybe no one at all, and I was just letting some stranger's delusion nest in my head. 3 hours in the air, I almost convinced myself. Maybe he was mentally ill. Maybe I wasn't the target. Maybe none of it was real. Then the plane landed. I stepped into Charlotte Douglas Airport, and the air felt different, humid, restless. My heart thudded louder with every moving walkway. By baggage claim, the crowd thinned. I collected my suitcase and rolled it toward the exit doors, pretending to check my phone. My stomach flipped remembering the man's exact words. "They'll grab you outside baggage claim." I stalled, acting like I was searching for an Uber, but really I scanned the curb through the glass doors. That's when I saw them. Two men standing just beyond the flow of travelers. Not together, but too close to be strangers. Both wore baseball caps pulled low. Both had their bodies angled toward the doors, waiting. And just behind them, parked illegally in the loading zone, was a dark gray van. Its engine was running. My skin crawled. I slowed down, pretending my suitcase had jammed. I ducked behind a family with strollers. The men adjusted, subtle, but their heads turned toward me as the doors opened and closed with the crowd. It's them. I could feel it, like the warning had planted the idea, and now it was flowering into truth right in front of me. I had two choices: walk out and test it, or stall until they gave up. But they didn't look like men who gave up. I wheeled my suitcase in a circle and headed for the opposite exit near car rentals. My pulse hammered in my ears. Behind me, footsteps, not running, just following. I didn't turn around. Instead, I cut into a restroom, dragging my bag inside like a shield. Cold fluorescent light washed over the tiles. A few travelers inside glanced up, then left. When the last person walked out, I locked myself in a stall. I stood there, hand clamped over my mouth, listening. The bathroom door creaked open. Two sets of footsteps. They didn't use the urinals. They just stood. One of them laughed quietly, like he was telling a joke only the other understood. Then silence. I texted my brother, "Call me now." When the phone buzzed seconds later, I answered loud, like I wasn't alone. "Yeah, I'm right by security. Yeah, cops everywhere. I'll meet you at the police desk." The footsteps shifted. A pause. Then the door swung open and shut again. I counted to 60 before moving. When I stepped out, the bathroom was empty. My reflection in the mirror looked pale, eyes wide like I'd seen a ghost. I left the restroom fast and found two uniformed officers near the main entrance. I told them everything. The man at the other airport, the two guys by the van, the bathroom. They exchanged a look I couldn't read. One officer walked me outside. The van was gone. So were the men. "We'll check cameras," the officer said. His tone was calm, but not dismissive. "You did the right thing by coming to us." That night, in the hotel, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying it. Those caps, that van engine purring like a predator ready to leap. The next day, I still went to my interview. But the whole time, I was glancing at the windows, imagining shadows behind glass. Weeks later, I called the airport police for an update. They told me they had footage of two men matching my description. They lingered near the baggage claim for 40 minutes, then left in a gray Dodge van with stolen plates. "Did they catch them?" I asked. "Not yet," the officer said. "But you weren't the only one. Similar complaints have come in." That was it. No closure, no arrests. Just the knowledge that someone out there had marked me as prey and slipped away. To this day, I wonder about the man in the sport coat. Who was he? How did he know? Sometimes I imagine he was part of them and had a change of heart. Sometimes I think he was ex-law enforcement, trained to spot danger. Other times, I fear he was testing me, seeing if I'd spook easily. But I remember his eyes, steady and urgent, and I believe he saved me. Now, whenever I fly, I never walk out of baggage claim alone. I scan the crowd, check the vans idling by the curb, and hold my phone like a lifeline. Because once, a stranger whispered a warning in an airport, and it came true.